All right. I want to start in on the six-cylinder. Six-cylinder, again, there are a couple of, this distributor cap right here is a conductive one. You can see it's been coated with gypsum, and Mercury recommended replacing them with a non-conductive type. This is a later one that's gray. The earlier ones were that tan like this. They were a tan color. I've seen these in white, gray, tan, and blue. And I'm sure there are other colors too, but they're all non-conductive. They don't need to be replaced. Unlike a car or an inboard engine distributor cap, these do not carbon track and they don't give any trouble. So they're perfectly...
The one on the motor here is the troublesome one?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Still usable or just risky to use?
You can use it, just risky to use, yeah. I mean, you clean it up and spray it inside. I've seen them work. They will, but around salt water, they're totally trouble. So
well, when you start getting corrosion on your ends,
yes,
from that salt water,
that raises the resistance.
That's right.
Right.
I mean, that spark's going to go somewhere, and it's going to go closest to the ground.
Yes.
So it's going to find its way.
Right. So it's a good idea to clean that corrosion off, but it's not, doesn't seem to be a big issue with these things. I don't know why it isn't, but it isn't.
So any measure to, like, you know, like putting WD-40 on it or anything like that?
That works fine for spraying the inside of these things. Yes, it'll keep the moisture down and it'll prevent carbon tracking from occurring. Okay, couple of things about these distributor caps, old ones and new ones alike. They are not. The caps are not pushed in. They have screwed in ends. They're screwed into the distributor cap. You cannot pull them out. You have to unscrew them. And they screw in. I don't know if this one's going to work, but it's got a very distinct. I'm going to probably end up pulling the whole end off. I did. See, that's what happens when people pull on them. They pull the end right off of these things, and a lot of times I'll have them come in and there'll be wires kind of stuck up in there. This one was crimped. There's a couple of different ways to do these. Mercury did them with a Raja tool, which is right somewhere over here. Or did I loan it to somebody? I think I did, actually.
So there, you can save that end if need be, right?
No, they're not savable because you can't get the thing into them if they're bent out. I suppose you could. If you had a drift that fit exactly in there, you maybe could reuse them.
Yeah, okay. All right. As long as there's some hope.
That's the Raja clipper. I'm kind of a mind, what we did for a while was we put in solder in the bottom of these things, flare the end of the wire at the very end. Don't bend it down over the rubber because you can't get it in there, but just at the very end, and put a little bit of solder on that, get them tinned, and then heat this up and then push it in there, and they seem to stick pretty good. I think
you're guaranteed it's not going to fall out.
Right, exactly. But the Raja clamp clips the end, it pushes the end in all the way around up here and crimps it onto the wire. So okay, so anyhow, I just wanted to discuss that because these do not pull out. And a lot of people, like I say, try to. All right.
I've got some questions about this six-cylinder thing, seeing how I have one.
Okay.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to show you how to take the, we've got the point box off. Okay, so then I use this tool. These are conductive. And if you can put a new one in when you're working on them, it's a good idea too. Have I seen that many of them fail? No, but they do. Apparently, they were conductive, and Mercury recommended replacing them when you were in there. Okay.
So what rubs? Oh, this is a contact point.
That's correct. If you looked over here, this is one. Comes in from the side. Mm-hmm. That's for 3 cylinders. And then one comes up from the bottom, and that's for the other 3 cylinders. Okay.
That looks like trouble right off a step.
Well, it isn't. For some reason, it isn't much trouble. With these ignition systems, the only thing I can say that really is trouble is people leave the key on. If they're in the wrong position, they burn the hell out of the points and everything else. So that's all I can say.
Boil the coil.
Yeah, they don't like it much.
No, they don't.
Okay, so on this 6-cylinder version, we have a couple of things to remember. There was a very expensive ignition timing device, which was called the Allen synchrograph, and you could get a desktop model and or a standalone model, and they had a special plate for it that gave you the degree. It was called just the degree plate. You'll see it in some of the older manuals. I had one, but I gave it away, so I don't have one, but there are 2 other ones. Yeah. Again, we have condensers. They want to be checked. Very important that they work well. And we have the type of points that I'm talking about now. These are the points that they used in the 4-cylinder as well as the 6-cylinder, the later 4-cylinder one. And you stick a screwdriver in here. It's got 1 screw you loosen. They're a lot easier to work. So this right here, we have a distributor breaker point and dwell synchronizing plate, points closed, points open, and then your second set, all you're really interested in is when the points open. You don't really care where they close. It's not critical. This one right here is for Thunderbolt ignition. All right? And they don't talk about it, but there are 2 timing indicators, and they have different settings. They are different. And one of them is for Thunderbolt ignition, and one of them is for standard ignition. So you want to be very careful when you're using this stuff. If you look at these, you will see that there's a small arc here and a large arc here. On this one, there's a large arc up here and a small arc down here. So you're 180 degrees out almost with one of these.
And
So-
that locator pin that's on the distributor shaft is offset to match.
It may very well be, but the 2 don't work together. See, I've marked it Thunderbolt.
Okay.
Do I know this from experience? Yes, because I've tried to set one up with this, and I said, "What's going on here? This thing isn't coming out, isn't working right at all." So anyhow, just something to be mindful of. Here, if you look, it has both. Okay, the Thunderbolt ignition. This is the setting for the Thunderbolt ignition. It's got the dashed lines, and this is the set for the standard ignition. If you look, these 2, you can see that they align. Okay, so this one does both. But for people like myself, I just as soon have the one that doesn't have it on there so I don't get confused. So I want to make sure that I've got the right timer and this stuff, and I will stick this on here. You see there's a slot right here. That's for your little wire to get down through. Gives you some kind of an idea where to start. There we go. Okay.
So really, these.
Okay, there we go. So it sets up somewhat like this. That way we got some maneuverability here with this. Okay, so we know kind of where to start. So what I do again, this one has pretty good tension, so I don't bother to put the screws on the bottom. It just makes it hard to move around. And I set it in the vise. Carefully, don't bugger this, because this has to slide into another piece, and if you bugger it, it makes life a little bit miserable. All right, there we go with that. Here we go with this. And this is one of those cases, if you see the offset, I'm gonna put the long part up here. So there we go. It fits right down over. If I try and put it on like this, it won't go down. It won't fit down over that pin. Okay.
And that also is a safety, not so much a safety as it is a consideration, so you can't just put that on any old way. It has to go on that
Correct. Correct. Absolutely correct. Okay, now this one goes down underneath. I kind of do them like this so I can get this one. This is something you want to make sure you read the book on, okay? There's a number of different colors. On some of the early ones, they said use the red one. This one has a brown and white one. It's a newer engine. It came off of that. That's an 850. So it tells you in the book how to do these. You do not want to use the old book. The old book is, there was a service bulletin that came out on these things that makes it a lot easier to do. Go in here, it'll tell you which one to hook it up to. I'm just going to hook it up to the white one because I think that's what it is, and see if it's right. If it's not right, it won't time, so we'll know soon enough. Okay. All right, so we'll turn this on. Okay. The points are opened. Closed right there. Okay, so we want to move it right there. Okay, here we go. Bring it around here. Okay. So, all right, we're very close. So this is what I do sometimes okay, we've got it closed right there. So let's bring this around like this. I'm going to set it right there. I'm going to set it to the outside edge. That moves this a little closer and see if I'm on the money. Well, if I'd had a bad day, I might say those were pretty good, but we'll get them better. We'll see if we can get them a little bit better. So we want to move this back here just a little bit. And which set am I? I'm doing this set right here, which is white, because that's the one moving. All right, so we want those to break a little sooner. So we're going to put it right here on the outside edge, halfway. They give you very specific directions. So we're going to go, I moved it, there we go. And let's see if that does it. All right, now let's go back here. All right.
So you're really just, you're going to split the difference anyway.
Yeah, well, if you can,
or two, yeah.
Yeah, they give you that allowance, so you might as well take it. Pretty good now. I'd say they were right on. I can move these back and forth, so almost right in the middle on both of them. Okay, so I'd say that one was fine. Now the second set, in this particular case, the brown. All right, let's just see where we are with that. The second set, we don't want to move. We have to synchronize those with this set right here. So we absolutely do not want to move the plate. Say this one, we have to very definitely have to get to open right there. So we want them to open a little sooner. So we're going to twitch it and hope we got it. Did I make it worse? I did. I went too far. It's opening too soon. Okay, so we'll move it halfway to perfect and see if we can get that a little bit better. Let's tighten this up just a little bit. Oh, God, I'm way off. I'm making it worse and worse. So
well, one of the questions I have is watching it from the very beginning when we get started on this. I noticed, I watched that meter, and it wasn't a real quick break. It was a real
Yeah.
gradual. Do you think that's caused from maybe corrosion? on the
Oh,
points?
absolutely. I'd want to clean those points, and I'd want to set the tension on them before I did this, just like we went through on the other part. Yes, absolutely. I want to make sure those points are A1. So they're closed now. Okay. Okay, let's see how far back we are. Well, we're a little too far the other way. I'm getting worse, not better. Okay, let's see here. I want those to break. Let's see how that works. I wanted to break just a little bit sooner. So I'll put it back on it again and get it to I want to stay closed sooner. That's right. They're breaking too soon. Let's see if that's enough. Okay, let's see. I'm going to give myself, okay, I'm on that outer mark. So we now have the points set at, let's see, we got 6 cylinders, 360 degrees is 90 degrees, right? Mm-hmm. So then they're 90 degrees apart right now, and that's what you're trying to achieve. Points closing doesn't matter. There's no mark in there because it really doesn't. What we're more interested in is that they open at the right time. And again, we want to do that test on the spring on both of those. It's very important with this one, especially where you've got a battery-driven ignition. It's more than ever critical because the dwell definitely needs to be there correctly, because if it gets shorter, you're not going to get the buildup of spark, and you're going to lose some power at the top end if they're not holding
the
timing.
The term dwell. That's used to. That's the time it takes to saturate the coil?
Correct, but it's dwell is the time that the points stay together.
Okay.
They're dwelling in the house.
It's
they're,
dwell, yeah.
They're dwelling
exactly
together.
what it is.
Yeah, it's exactly what the word means.
Right.
They're holding together and allowing that current to flow through the points to saturate the coil in the case of a battery-driven ignition. Mm-hmm. In the case of the magneto, what's critical is the fact when they open, they want to open at exactly the same time that the flux is changing. And it's a little bit more complicated. In that article that guy did here in the last outboarder did a terrific job with
Did
that.
a really good job.
So any questions you guys have got on this?
You adjust the spring tension before setting the points?
Correct. Again, right. And I usually forget that and set the points, and then I have to go back and set the spring tension, and usually it's off, so I have to take everything apart and start all over again.
Maybe you'll watch this video and then you'll remember.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
When rule number 1 doesn't work, go back to rule number 2.
But these are issues which I think are very, very important for the engine to run correctly. Ignition timing is important, that it be closed, but generally for idling and starting and so forth, its timing is more of a speed at the top end. So
Yeah, you gain, that's where you have the most benefit.
yeah, right. If you can advance the timing to the point where they're not going to blow up, but they're as close to melting as you can get them, yeah, you're going to get the most horsepower out of them while they're still intact. Right.
Yes, there is too much timing.
Yeah.
So essential tools for setting the magneto.
I think it's these plates, the dwell plates with the timers, And I think having the correct, either a Mercatronic or equivalent, Stevens equivalent, and having a spring tension tool, I think, is very important, because you could see how far out that other one was. It was way off. And that was a set of points that came out of an engine that was worked at a dealership. I just came here. It probably hasn't been touched in 30 years.
Now, is there any benefit to being able to actually see that dwell in action on a running motor?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well,
I know what you're talking about. That's what the Allen Synchrograph did.
Okay.
It allowed you to actually see with a neon light the dwell, and that's how you adjusted
how many degrees
points.
Dwell you have,
Right,
and
exactly.
so forth.
But on this one, it's critical they be 90 degrees apart, that the points
That's
open
it.
at 90 degrees.
Well, that's
And
pretty straightforward.
That's, if you look at the cam on that, there are 3 lobes on that. So you got 2 sets of points and 3 lobes. On this one, you got 1 set of points and 4 lobes, and it's a 4-cylinder magneto. And this one does have 2 magnets that rotate. The OMC magneto that they used on the Fat 50 and I think on the 60, that had the same deal. Had 4 magnets. Actually, their magnetism though was in the side. They didn't want to have to pay Fairbanks Morse a patent fee, so they designed their magneto with the magnets in the outside rather than the inside.
There really isn't a lot of, there's not a lot of distance between the high points of the actual breaker point cam on these. They're very close together.
Yes, they are.
Compared to like a Mark 20 or something like that, which has a...
But you've got 2 magnetos in a Mark 22.
That's right.
You've got 2 coils. In this one, you've got 2 coils. That's why this is the equivalent of a 12-cylinder 4-cycle. It's firing every 90 degrees, which is like, it's 12 cylinders. It would be a 12-cylinder engine. And these things also have ball bearings in them. And the automotive ones were bushed.
Bushed, oh yeah.
Yeah, and they did wear out, and that's why your dwell could be more on
That's
one
right.
than the other one, and that's
and that's pretty much where I was coming from with that, is that you'd be able to spot anything that's worn.
That's
shafts.
why the Allen Synchrograph. Mercury sold those for a while, but there was no need for them when you're talking about ball bearings. Would I, before I started with this at all, I would definitely back the points completely away and make sure that my ball bearings didn't have any catch or whatever. But
Now,
that's
as far as
that's the whole
lubrication
other
for your rubbing blocks on your points,
good question. These lubricators right here, they want to be set according to the manual. They basically want them to brush at the high point. And this stuff was one of the K2. It's a silicone type lubricant, was what they use. It's point lubricant. This says for points. This stuff is probably, let's see, 1950. So what does it mean? 60 years? This tube is 60 years old, but that's what they use.
and it's probably got the good stuff in it.
Right, exactly. Probably dangerous as all get out.
Just don't lick your fingers.
So, any other question? Anything you think of, David?
No, I usually just bring mine in and have you do it.
I see.